Welcome to the Real Estate and Small Business for Management Consultant Show. Whether you hold a corporate 9 to 5 or have determined that you want to explore the small business realm, this show is for you. Christian Carrillo talks to entrepreneurs and experts in the real estate and small business realms to discover what they do, why they do it, and how they do it to help show you the art of the possible. And now your host, Christian Carrillo.
Welcome back to the Real Estate and Small Business for Management Consultant Show. I am your host, Christian Carrillo. Today we've got a special interview for you folks, a man that a lot of you probably know him by name and that I've been trying to get onto the show for quite some time. Our guest is my mentor, Jerome Maldonado. Thanks for hopping on the show, Jerome.
Christian, thanks for having me. Just really appreciate you having me here this morning.
Yeah, of course. So while the man does not need an introduction, I'll sort of tee it up here and sort of toss it to him to introduce himself. But Jerome Maldonado is a highly successful real estate investor, business owner, coach, and speaker. Inspired by his parents' dedicated work ethic, Jerome has always had a hunger for success and a willingness to do whatever it took to make his vision for his life a reality. Starting from scratch, he struggled for many years to get his business off the ground. But from this, he learned what it really takes to build an empire from the ground up. After years of honing his skills in sales, team building, and real estate concepts, Jerome finally built his first six-figure business in his 20s. In 1998, Jerome pioneered a new construction company, which he took to 7 figures, and get this, in less than 1 year. With much success came the need for expansion. Understanding the simple concepts and benefits of leasing real estate, he purchased a multi-use retail and commercial property to house his business. Jerome found the traction and confidence, which has allowed him to do millions upon millions of dollars in residential and commercial real estate transactions and holdings. Over the span of his 20-year career, Jerome has done over 200 million in-house transactions, with another 52 million in 2021 alone. That is quite the background. We'll get into some of his business ownership as well. But Jerome, again, thank you so much for hopping on the show. We're very happy to have you on.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to share with your audience, a little bit of what we're doing and kind of how we got here in our journey and everything that we've done thus far since the early 90s.
Yeah. So with that, Jerome, I know, the background of your story from us talking quite a bit. But why don't you sort of dive into your superpowers, right? I definitely want our listeners to sort of see where you started and how you sort of got to where you are today.
We all have a little bit of something in us, right? And I believe that we all have a little bit of something in us. I believe my superpowers are really just my consistency and persistence more than anything. I don't know that I was extremely talented in one area. I just refused to give up. And at a young age, not even a young age, I was in a young age compared to where I am now, I guess. As a teenager, my parents would tell me that certain things weren't for us, that those were for rich people, and that kind of stimulated something in my mind, thinking, well, if God made us equal, why is that not for us? And that used to resonate in my brain. And I think, what separates the wealthy and makes them deserving of more and the better things of life that doesn't qualify me to have the exact same thing? And that kind of started it. But I always had that little entrepreneurial feel inside of me. Even as a kid, I was always driven to go out and do more. I was working at the sports stadium, selling cotton candy and Coke as a kid. And I knew that if I sold more, I'd make more commissions. I loved cars. I did car shows when I was a kid, and I worked at a grocery store. But on the side, I tinted windows and did car stereo installs in high school and even college, just to make ends meet. But not only ends meet, to make extra money to put into my cars and do the things that I enjoy doing. And that kind of carried me and parlayed me into life, even as I went through college. And in the early 90s, I got started in direct sales and network marketing. And my direct sales and network marketing career was really the pinnacle piece that I needed in the beginning. I didn't know that then, but that sales experience that it took me 4.5 years into my professional career, two to 2.5 of which were very challenging, Christian. And from that platform, though, even that 2.5 years of extreme struggling really set me up In 1997, we got shut down by the FTC. There was a big regulation that came in, and a lot of the direct sales network marketing companies got shut down, reorganized, and a lot of stuff happened in the industry. And we were left without an opportunity. But I was not, and one thing my parents always told me, they said, Jerome, knowledge is one thing that can never be taken from you, like your education. You'll die and leave everything on this earth, but the one thing you'll take with you is what you learn. And I've always remembered that. And so I was able to take 4.5 years of intense, brutal training, I guess, sort of say, in sales, marketing, and it really parlayed my career. That was the only reason that I was able to take a company in 1998 from 0 to 7 figures in its first year. It wasn't because I was just exceptional at what I did. I just learned exceptional skills that I still carry with me today, and they've served me well. So I'm thankful for that stuff.
No, that's excellent. And so from us talking, I think you've told me multiple times, Christian, remember, we're all in the business of sales and marketing, right? Because I think those are critical skills to have in life, because you're either selling your product, your services, yourself to other people as well, right?
You're selling yourself, and more than your product and services, you're really selling yourself. And so I always tell people, sales skills are less about the tricks of sales and more about relationship building. People need to like and trust you, and when people realize that you're genuine, products and services should really sell themselves if you have something quality. And I truly believe that. So everything that I've done is said on that platform, where I sit back and go, okay, do we really have something here that people need, want, is going to get utilized, needs to be replaced? And if you have those items, you're gonna move forward in a positive direction, in spite of how incredibly savvy you are in sales. You know, I'll tell you, I'll give you an example. There's a video I was watching on YouTube this past week, and it's a gentleman named Alexis who has a company that is doing modified building, which, you know, we're in the construction and development industry, and it intrigued me. The guy, I believe, is eccentric in some way, and a lot of people, like even Elon Musk, are diagnosed with some type of stuff like ADD or you know, attention deficit, whatever they're diagnosed with. And those folks have something. They have an innate way of thinking, and they don't have the ability or the extroverted nature to go out there and just sell and pound. But when I listened to this guy, I was sold on his concept of what he was doing, not because he had a savvy sales approach, not because he knew how to lure me in and persuade me. It was because of his genuine nature of who he was in his demeanor, in his true personality, and what he was selling. He believed in. You could tell he was genuine, right? And so when you learn that in your career, that sales is more about relationships and less about the technique of sales. The technique of sales can come in down the road. You know, that stuff always helps. I'm not gonna take anything away from the techniques of sales, because I've learned them. Psychology behind understanding people is more important than that, though. When you understand people and the psychology of how people think, their personalities, what they do, and even yourself, because most people don't even understand themselves, yet they go out and try to sell people on something that they don't even understand themselves, but trying to sell people that they don't even understand their personalities and how their personality relates to those folks. It's that psychology that really moves people. And when you learn that, it makes you unstoppable, you know. But relationships are big. That's what really builds businesses, is relationships with employees, with customers, clients, all the way across the board is what really makes the difference between a good business owner and a mediocre business owner and a subpar business owner.
No, that's excellent, Jerome. And you know, from being in Aqua Academy, which I definitely want to touch on, I know you talk a little bit about when we engage people in sales, we often try to sell to them how we want to be sold to, and that doesn't necessarily work all the time, right? So it's a bit of a paradigm shift there that you have to have as well.
Yeah, it is. You know, I took a training years ago. And I did it 2 years in a row. It's a 1-week training. Back in the early 90s, I paid like $3,000 for it back then. And it's a 1-week training. I did it twice. And it takes you back to your childhood. And, you know, in the whole concept behind it is that we were born to win, conditioned to lose, right? Like, you're that one sperm that won out of millions and millions and millions. And we were born winners. But then through life, we're conditioned to lose. People telling us what we can't do instead of what we can do. And so it takes us back to our early childhood and tries to get you to pull out why you are the way you are. You know, the people who demised you in certain ways, the people that also built you up in certain ways, and what shaped and sculpted your personality, who you are, what your limited beliefs are. And then it takes you through the psychology of where you were, where you came from, who you are, understanding why you are the way you are, and then teaching you about your true personality and how to overcome some of the things that have limited you in your life to be able to help you push forward. Then once you do that, into the week, it teaches you about other people and how your personality relates to them. And so I'd say by far, I've went to hundreds, I don't know if thousands, but hundreds of trainings, and been around and influenced by some of the best business people and entrepreneurs in the world. But that is probably one of the best trainings I've ever been to. And I, so much so that I did it twice, and I still hold the book today. And I even reference it sometimes when I'm thinking about certain things, and I'll even read through it and just gaze through the book. It's about a 2-inch 3-ring binder, and I'll go through it every once in a while. And it's just a refresher and a reminder of who I am and how I've changed, where I came from, and how to deal with people, you know. And so I utilize that and embrace that dearly.
No, that's excellent, Jerome. And you know, now that we're sort of on the topic here, you do quite a few things, right? You do ground up development, you do multifamily, you've bought businesses, you're buying failing businesses now, right? Look, at what point, you know, did you decide, hey, I'm going to go into entrepreneurship, right? Because you have a pretty good background, and you know, you could have gone to a corporate career or whatnot. So at what point did you sort of determine, hey, entrepreneurship is for me?
So I was in pharmacy school in 1993. Went the traditional route of education, and then my parents told me, go to school, get a good education. At the time, a bachelor's in pharmacy was the highest paying bachelor's degree that you could get, $42,000 a year. That was great money back then, you know. And so I sat back, and after my third year of school, I remember being burnt out mentally. You know, I'm a dyslexic kid. I worked hard to get through school. There was some kids that worked significantly, they didn't work nearly as hard as I did, and had it significantly easier than I did getting through. And I was mentally and physically just burnt out by the end of that semester. Took a sabbatical, went to Mexico for a few weeks, came back, wanted to work in a gym of all places. And I got introduced to a direct sales network marketing company that said health and fitness, answered an ad, and they were selling water filters and vitamins. And I'll tell you, that was my introduction to entrepreneurship in physical reality. And I was sold hook, line, and sinker. I drank the Kool-Aid that day, and I'll tell you that I never went back. There was times that I wanted to cry, quit. There was times I did cry. I almost quit, you know, because you're just going through so much mentally. And I got over the hump. And it wasn't the system that was the issue. It was me. You know, we're raised in a system that teaches us how to go out and be employees, not entrepreneurs. You know, if you think about the 14,000 hours that we spend in school, there's not one hour that really talks about entrepreneurship, being self-employed, how to be an independent business owner. I mean, I can't recall 1 hour that was ever spent on that throughout my entire career. In fact, Christian, as embarrassing as it is, I think it was 3 or 4 years into being an entrepreneur that I even understood what the word meant. You know, people had asked me, "Oh, you're an entrepreneur." When I tell them what I do, and I say, and I didn't know what the word meant. I would just kind of shuck my head like, yeah, I guess, you know, because that word had never come up in my vocabulary or conversations growing up as a kid. And so hence I was probably making $250,000 a year before I even knew what the word meant, you know. As ironic as that may sound, you know, it's kind of funny. But I got in 1998, I started a construction company pouring concrete on accident. I didn't know anything about construction. I sanded drywall while I was in college on the side just to make a little bit extra money for my brother-in-law. When I moved back down after the company blew up in 1997, Christian, I landed up back in school, finishing my last year for my degree. I came back to New Mexico because I had 1 year left. If I would have went to school anywhere else, it would have taken me three years to finish my degree. Because of all the courses I would lose. So I decided to come back. I was moonlighting, flying back and forth to Texas and New Mexico every weekend that entire year, because I was still doing direct sales. I was with a company called New Skin Farminex. Some people are probably familiar with that. That's where I put my distributorship when everything fell apart. And my brother-in-law was in an interim part of his life where his boss had gotten shut down for tax evasion. And so I went with him to get his contractor's license. Hence, he didn't show up the day we took our exam. I did, and I landed up with what's called a GB98, my general contractor's license. And I'll tell you that I didn't know anything about the trade or industry on a professional basis, but I knew how to market. And so he had the employees, I had the marketing experience. I went out and sold, and I went out and sold with a vengeance, because at that time I felt like I was in a position where I had lost everything. And I was making $250,000 a year, went back down to zero, created a little business that was making me about $5,000 a month in income. And I felt like I had my whole future in front of me. And I was kind of angry, a little bit bitter at the time because of all the roller coaster ride I was on. And I just put my head down and we marketed that business aggressively. And I was pounding on doors, businesses. And we did about $1.2 million our first year in business. And we've taken that business now, which we still own, to a business that this year will do over $100 million on our books for 2022. At least that's what we're projected to do. So we're working in that direction for 2022. So it's been a great ride, Christian, to say the very least.
No, that's amazing, Jerome, and kudos to you, because I think sometimes people see the success and they don't necessarily know all the years and work that it took to get to that point, right? So again, kudos to you on everything that you're all accomplishing there.
Yeah, no, thank you, Christian. One thing that I think I'll sit here and I'll tell my story sometimes, and Christian, and I got to apologize to the audience, because I think sometimes it becomes more hyper-focused on me or those people that are on the podcast and less focused on them. And the reality is that I come from a normal Hispanic background family, Catholic traditional family that everybody comes from. My parents didn't come from a whole lot of money. My dad came from a broken home that he had to move out at 16 years old, didn't graduate high school, got his GED, then later met my mom, and then my mom pushed him to go back to college, became an accountant, right? Spent 32 years as an accountant, worked at a grocery store doing that. And my mom came from a family of 11 kids. Father passed away at the age of 5. And my grandma was left with raising all these kids, working at a post office. And they were poor, they were poor. Small mountain town in a rural area. And at 18, they got 50 cents to take a bus into town to go get a job. And that was their introduction to the real world, right? So my mom worked at the factories at Levi Strauss, driving school buses. And as a kid, my parents worked their tail off just to put us in Catholic school, in private education, because they thought that was the means, right? So I came from the other side of the train tracks. I grew up on the other side of the train tracks. My parents just worked hard to try to give me a better education, and I contribute, like it said in my bio, I contribute a lot of what I've been able to succeed with today based on the work ethic and the examples my parents gave me as a child, and nothing more. I battled from dyslexia, was sent to the stupid van, what I called the stupid van as a kid. It was the chapter 1 reading special ed van every day, all the way through 8th grade, and I really thought I was inferior. All the kids got to go do fun stuff, like go to PE and do other stuff. And I got stuck in this reading van my whole life. So it was embarrassing. Every day they would come and pull you out of class and say, okay. And there'd be 2 or 3 of us go to the dumb van, right? And you felt that as a kid. So that right away starts pounding you down emotionally and confidence-wise as a kid. It was a good thing my mom, she just always believed and instilled in me that confidence and in voicing who I was and everything that I was doing. And so through the means and persistence of my mom fighting for me through life as a kid, it gave me that fight myself growing up. And so it was really that fight. And so I tell people, look, if you have nothing more than than just that fight and desire to succeed, you'll make it. You don't have to be the smartest tool in the shed. I wasn't. I just worked hard. And at a certain point in time, you start working smart, you start learning special concepts and things that the wealthy and the affluent learn, and you start applying them. And it's not going to happen overnight. This has been a journey for sure. If you look back at the dates, I've been battling this for almost 30 years now. I'm year 28, going on year 29 of my entrepreneurial career. And so it all looks like it happened overnight now, but there was a journey. Some of you guys watching it aren't even 30 years old yet. You guys weren't even born when I started this entrepreneurial journey. So understand that there's been a process involved in everything that I've done, and there's been a lot of roller coasters, a lot of ups, lots of downs, a lot of even downs in the good times. 2008 was a perfect example of that when we hit the recession. It took us several years to clean that mess up, and so here we sit now, Christian. And so through my apologies of apologizing to the audience for telling them, look, guys, this isn't really about me. This is about all of you that aspire to do what we've been doing, and we're still working at it too, right? I'm still working every day at getting better at what I do. I'm still working every day at trying to be a better dad, a better husband. I make my set of mistakes. Made my own mistake with my daughter this weekend. You sit back, okay, that probably wasn't the right way of handling that situation. I need to do better tomorrow at that. And I need to set a better example for her in the future for certain things that you do, you say, the way you do it. So it's a constant learning and building and process of who we are every single day. We don't just land here, and I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been blessed for sure. It's been a great journey. We've been blessed for sure.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And, as you were talking, it reminded me of this Michael Jordan quote where he says, some people want it to happen, some wish it would happen, and then others make it happen. Right. So I think that that's very powerful, and sort of to the point that you mentioned, right? Like growing up, I too had dyslexia. And I remember up until the fourth grade going into class, like special reading classes while everybody's out having fun. And you kind of just got to keep pushing at it, right? Even at that young age, while you're getting stomped down, you just got to keep pushing. And sort of to your point, the compound effect kicks in, right? And it's sort of a learning process, and you keep getting better and better. So yeah, definitely appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
So Jerome, one topic that I wanted to sort of touch on was you buying failing businesses, right? We're talking, big name brands, Radio Shack, Pier 1 Imports, Model Sporting Goods. Could you talk a little bit more about that? What exactly are you all doing? How did you get involved in that?
Sure. So I really got involved with that through my real estate professional experience. In all honesty, I'm not the e-commerce guy. I don't want to take credit for. I'll give credit to Ty Lopez and Dr. Alex Meir, my business partners in that regards. I'm an equity owner and minority owner in those businesses. And I just saw the opportunity, right? We're all working together. Ty and I are buying warehouses together, and we're pushing into a market sector where there's a mass need, right? Right now, there's over 1 billion square feet of warehouse needed that's going to be developed over the next 5 years. It's just inevitable with all of the tech companies growing, online retail companies growing. There's a mass need, but also there's opportunity in times of distress. And Ty was talking about all these distressed retail brands. I'm talking about all these distressed retail centers. And so together we kind of mixed e-commerce and real estate and partnered up in doing so. And in doing so, we didn't realize that the pandemic was going to hyper stimulate what's happening in the world with retail, right? That e-commerce was going to boom at such a rate that it did over the last 2 years through the pandemic. And it was going to really hyper stimulate the bankruptcy of a lot of these brick and mortar stores. So in the interim of Ty and I doing some warehouse stuff, they landed up buying Dress Barn, and I go in that with them financially and invest with them. I believe in the concept, and I see the opportunity to take these brands that are 100-year-old brands, old school American brands that most of us that are on here grew up with. At least if you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s, these are names that you heard. Pier 1 Imports, Radio Shack, Model Sporting Goods if you're from the East Coast, Linen and Things, the Franklin Mint, the original mint that you bought on TV. And so you hear about all these brands, and how many years did it take of marketing to get to the American people, and in some cases like Radio Shack, to the world, and have the world recognize those. So think about this in perspective, Christian, to you building any business, right? Like how long will it take for you to get the Christian Carrillo podcast out to the entire world, where that is many millions of people know who and what you do, and how much money would it take to market that, like a company like Pier 1 Imports, a Radio Shack. And so you take these companies that have been around forever and they have face recognition of over 93%. And so you're able to buy them for pennies on the dollar, right? Literally pennies on the dollar. We're able to buy the intellectual properties, dissolve all of the debt, all the real estate, get rid of all of it, let all the bankruptcy courts and stuff take care of all of that. And then you take the name, the brand, and own that, and then restructure it online. And there's multiple phases that Ty and them are working on right now. And I'm fortunate to be on the CEO chat and to get to see the day-to-day in and out of what goes on behind the scenes of the negotiations, the marketing, all of the brands. And so it's really cool to see how they're moving and stimulating and picking up pace, right? Where we've been able to come in, and a few of the brands are already debt-free, paid off all the investors in debt, and they're actually EBITDA positive, and they're moving forward in that direction. So as that debt was all dissolved in bankruptcy court and the brands were picked up, we were able to put those brands back to work almost instantaneously with an online marketing team. And then we're positioning the distribution out of warehouses and so forth. So that's kind of how the marriage came into play. It's a cool concept. Over the next few years, you'll see small micro retail centers opened up in addition to the warehouses. So there's a multi-phase process to what we're doing. And as the world kind of unfolds and distribution centers and stuff are opened up, we're going to do the exact same thing for Pier 1 Imports, Radio Shack, and all of the above, all the brands that we've taken ownership of over the last few years.
Amazing, Jerome. Kudos to you all. I've seen what you all are working on, and through being in Ty's, 300 frameworks, he talks a lot about it as well. So it's amazing what you all are doing. Did you, like nowadays, do you ever look back and think, wow, I've come a long way? Do you ever sort of reminisce on that?
I should probably reminisce more. I'm so hyper focused on where I'm going. I don't look back enough.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably so, you don't want to focus on where you came from. I think that's bad because we go through so much sometimes. If you focus on all the negative or some of the struggles too much, your brain mentally adapts and stays there. So I've learned to hyper focus on where I'm going. So I don't really dwell and stuff, but I do. It's important, I think, sometimes to sit on a rock. And what I mean by sit on a rock is you ever have those moments where maybe you're sitting on the side of a lake and you sit on your rock, right? And it's just your serenity moment where you're kind of just reminiscing and thinking back. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And a lot of times what gets us there is times of stress or distress or hard times that we really sit back and we need to have a moment of appreciation, right? We go back and we reminisce. And sometimes I think we don't do that enough. I don't want people to focus on that every day, but I think it's important for people to sit on that rock. And even if it's once a week, once a month, just in a moment's time and realize, I know I don't do it enough, Christian, I'm guilty. I don't look back often enough. And in not doing so, sometimes we forget how appreciative we should be. Although I'm very thankful for where I've come from. And it's been so long now. We've been blessed for so many years with so much success that sometimes you forget that it wasn't that long ago that the struggles were real and right behind you. But in the back of your mind, you always know that they're that close. If you take them for granted too much, and you get destructive with what you've done or what you're doing, it's just that far behind you. And so you never want to go back in that direction, right? So make yourself aware of where you've come from and always continue moving forward. But in all honesty, Christian, I focus less on where I came from and I focus more on where I'm going. And so I stay hyper-focused in tunnel vision on where I'm going and what my goals and my future hold, because that's where life is taking us right now, right? That's where we need to be focused on. Our kids, our family, our business, all of that, is the direction that we're moving in, not where we came from, where we're going.
Yeah, that's great, Jerome. And I hope for our listeners, they're taking in these golden nuggets, right? Sir Isaac Newton said, if I can see far, it is because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. So, if you want to get to somewhere in life, pick up on those cues from individuals that are doing what you want to do. So I think that's very powerful, Jerome.
Yeah, we sometimes when we're sitting back and we're looking at where we're going, I think people get disturbed by all the noise in the world, right? That is around them. And I've been able to cut off a lot of that noise, and so much so that my wife tells me I live in my own little world. And I sit back and I go, good, I do. I want to live in my own little world, because there's so many distractions in the world that we live in that I don't want to focus on that stuff. I want to focus on what I'm doing and where I'm going. And it's important to stay hyper-focused in a direction. And doing so, I've kind of created my own artificial world, right? People will tell you to hang around those who are moving in the direction you are. And you have to do that in early ages. Then you create that direction. And the people that start following you become a part of your direction and what you're doing. And so now we've created such a platform of business and brands that everything in our life really surrounds around people moving forward. So the real world, of what people call the real world, is kind of like its own little artificial bubble outside of us. And we stay artificially surrounded by people and influencing people to be a part of the movement, right? And so I do live in my own little world in so many ways in regards to the business life. I stay hyper-focused on what we're doing and where we're going. And I believe that to get to places that you want to go, you have to indulge yourself in that. And I have, as I look around, even my office, and I look around, it's reminisce at the rhinos on my counter. There's good meaning to those. I look at, plaques of stuff that I did back in 2000 and 2001, for opening up the first training center, just the leadership of doing that. An online business called GoShopTheMalls.com, back in 2001, when, we knew that online shopping in those days were going to be something. We didn't know what it was, but we were working at it, right? I still have the plaques to show it. I look at the books on my bookshelves, and I look at what I've been listening to from audio cassette tapes from back in the 90s that I wore out in my cassette players, dating my career. And I just look around at all of the benchmarks, and I can't help but recognize that all the indulgement of all of that is really what helped me get to where we are today. And really now our focus is real estate. We are doing a lot of stuff in real estate. I know that your focus on your podcast is real estate. And through the means of business, we've been able to build a really cool real estate portfolio. But it really came from the foundation of setting ourselves up mentally, and the success of our businesses that really helped us push into the real estate sector the way we have.
No, that's great, Jerome. And I'm glad you touched on the topic of foundation, because it's so critical to any success or any endeavor you want to pursue, right? I definitely want to jump here to our quick response round, because these are questions that our listeners have pulled that they want to hear. So if all good with you, I'd like to jump into them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Perfect. So Jerome, first one for you. If you lost it all today, what would you do?
I would use other people's money and go buy real estate. I would go into syndicating hard and aggressively. I would open up. I just did a video. It's funny that you asked that. I just did a video for my videographer, Alec, this past weekend, as we sat this Saturday, and it'll actually air this week, that he just separated from his business partner, and essentially he's starting again from scratch, right? I was one of his original clients, and I set up a business plan, and I did a video for Knowledge Society. And one of the ways that Ty and I became friends is I was asked to do multiple trainings on his platform. And one of them was going from 0 to 60, 0 to 6 figures in 60 days, how you take a business from 0 to 6 figures in 60 days. And so to be able to go out and do the syndication thing, I need to feed my family, right? I've been blessed to have the wisdom now to go out. Every business that we've created, we've been able to take it to 6 figures, and a 6-figure business within its first year, meaning that we're making 5 figures a month within the first 60 days of owning that business, where we're able to take that and make profits that would lead us to 6 figures in that first year of business, right? So, excuse me. So I could take almost any traditional business, and through the means of what I talked to Alec about this past weekend, I could take a camera and I can make 6 figures with that. and I go to work tomorrow and make 6 figures with that. And I'm confident about that. I can take a busted down, broken down restaurant and I can make 6 figures with it tomorrow. The thing is, you can't be too prideful and you can't be afraid to work, right? And when you have a family, that I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people make. I had a friend that came and asked me for $2,000 a couple months ago, and I challenged him. I wanted to give him the $2,000, but he never hit the target. I never gave him the $2,000, and part of me felt guilty, right? Like felt like I should help him, right? I've been blessed. I should help him. But what I was trying to do was give him something more than just the $2,000. I was trying to get him to recognize that he was this far away from success, just an inch away from success. And he had put his family through hell because he was so persistent about becoming an entrepreneur. He was stubborn about the things he needed to do to provide for his family. And not everybody is gonna be a 0 to 6 figure person, Christian. Like I was sculpted slightly different than some people, right? That's something that God gave me. You know, gave me a talent to be able to do what I do, and not everybody was born with that talent. But we all have to recognize what our talents are. And if that isn't your talent, then I told him, go get a job, you know, and I gave him an opportunity. I gave him opportunities to come in and work with me at full commission, right? I wasn't going to give him a base salary, I was going to give him full commission. But that mindset kept him limited, right? That he didn't think he'd make it. And I assured him that he would, and that he could make, you know, $8,000 in his first month. But he never jumped. He never drank the Kool-Aid, never bit the bullet, never came in, never did it. How it came out, his results, I don't know, but he never got the $2,000 from me. And the whole point being was I wanted to teach him a concept about life, about, you know, being realistic to yourself, right? Like back in the days, I used to tell people, quit your job, burn your bridges, sink your boat, dive in with both feet, and just go for it. And as I've aged, I sat back and said, okay, why did we do that to people? We lived in a different age back in the 90s where things were slightly more aggressive. People were more assertive in so many ways. And the rude was ruder and cruder than it is today. God forbid today you're rude and crude, you get condemned for it. And so I truly believe that a lot of the old school beliefs of being just dead honest and brutal are what makes a lot of people. So if I lost everything today, Christian, I would go into real estate, syndicating. I would use other people's money. I know how to find deals. People can't take my wisdom from me. I have that. I can go out tomorrow. I can sit down. I can start underwriting deals, but I have to think about that's a process, right? That's going to be a 6 to 9 month process before I have cash flow. So what do I do between the next 6 to 9 months? Do I just, you know, let my family starve if I lost everything? No. So you have to be multi-diverse, and people get focused on one thing and they don't know how to diversify their income. So I would go out and I would have and create a business that I can make at least a 6-figure income in, whatever that is. And I would see what the opportunities are at that point in time. You know, if it was as simple as going out and picking up a camera and doing what I did with Alec this weekend and explaining to him a business model that works, reverse engineering some numbers on something, I would find something that I could reverse engineer, put to work, and start making cash flow today, right? Because there's a means to that. Like I do with my construction company. I had a 480 credit score when I opened my construction company, but I found out that residential customers, they could fund my commercial builds because they would give me 50% down, and that would allow me to finance my labor and allow me to finance my materials. And then upon completion, I got the second half. So what it was it became a race to finish projects that I could collect my second check. And and so the race was on. That's how I created that business, was I was able to go out and collect a deposit from them. I had no money, but I was able to collect a deposit from them to put materials and labor to work. And then I was able to go in, put a race together to get that job done, and then collect my profits, then reinvest that money. And I was able to do that with multiple customers and put people to work. And so I didn't need money to create a business. I used other people's money to create that business. And then the race was on for me to produce. And all I had to do, Christian, was produce. That's what people need to do. They need to produce. And so as long as God gives me health, I'm not worried about that. I will find a means and I will find a way because I'm willing to work. I'm okay with that. You know, I'm okay with it. It makes me feel good.
I love that, Jerome. I expected that you'd say something along those lines, knowing you. So that's exceptional. So second one here for you. Going forward, what do you have planned in your businesses and why?
So I'm going after generational wealth right now, and I'm trying to set myself up for 4 years from now. My son goes to high school. I promised my wife that we'd be completely mobile. We want to be able to run our businesses 100% remote. We want to be done with the day-to-day, day in, day out businesses. So in spite of what I just said, saying if it all fell apart tomorrow, I would go back and do it, and I would. I want to get back to the roots of what we've been building forever, and that's passive income, residual income, income that comes in spite of our own efforts. And so everything that I'm doing now is really less about what I make today and more about what I'm going to make tomorrow based on what I put together and I worked on today, right? So you could have a business that cash flows extremely well, Christian, but at the end of the day, if you step away from that business, it falls apart, you have nothing, right? If tomorrow you have to go out and sell in that business, or economically the world can change where you're at with that business, you really have nothing. But when you create a means to your business that cash flows in spite of you, a team of people that work for you, and and that's going to bring you an income in spite of your efforts, that's when you have real wealth, right? And so we've been focused on that since early 2000s. We've had retail, office, multifamily, a portfolio of real estate that we've been building since the early 2000s. But this is I don't want to call it our last aggressive push, but sort of say our last aggressive push, right? So like our goals are to be 100% mobile, be out of the traditional business world in the next 4 years, where we're not managing day-to-day employees, we're only managing paper and assets. And so our big push in business right now is to get there in the next 4 years, which we're on track, and we're looking really, really good in regards to that next 4 years and where we wanted to be when our kids start going off to college. And we'll be there, and so that's our main push right now, is just really solidifying our passive income through the means of real estate.
That's great, Jerome. And whenever you want to come back to the greater DC area, you let me know.
Yeah, I used to live down in Fairfax, right? I had one of my second offices, had our first office here in Albuquerque. Second office was right off of Route 50 and Pender Drive, right there in Fairfax County, in the city of Fairfax.
Yeah, so. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, Jerome, if you could give our listeners one piece of advice today, what would it be?
Stay persistent in what your goals are, and don't give up, but do what it takes. Do it. When I say do what it takes, I'm not saying like grind hard and do what it takes, sink your family, go bankrupt, not that type of do what it takes. Do what it takes. Put your head down and do what it takes to keep your life right. If that means stay in your job in spite of you hating it for an extra 5 years, I'll sit here and tell every single person that's listening to this. People tell you that if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. I think that's the most bullshit statement that I've ever heard in my life, because the second that you start doing what you love for work, it becomes work, and work is work. I don't care how you see it. Work is work. When you do it redundantly, and you have to pay attention to customer control, clients, accounting, taxes, everything that the real world encumbrances around us, it becomes work. And the reality of running a business, the reality of dealing with problems, it becomes real, right? So what I tell people, instead of doing what you love, do what makes money, because if you make money, it makes life easier. People say money doesn't buy happiness, and it doesn't buy happiness, but it makes life a lot easier. And the ease of life makes people happy, right? When you're struggling to pay a mortgage or a car payment, it doesn't make people happy. So I always tell people, do what makes money, because if you can do what makes money, you can set yourself up to then go out and do what you enjoy in life, and then you'll never work a day in your life. Does that make sense? And so what I leave all of the listeners with is to go out and do what it takes and be consistent at it. If that means you have to stay at your job, God forbid, another 5 to 7 years, damn it, do it. And start applying your time that you have, because you all have excess time. If you're working a 40-hour work week, believe you me, you have the time and the means to do what you need to do on the side. Like I teach people how to buy land, build houses. I tell them in 10 to 14 hours a week, you can learn how to make a 6-figure income buying land and building houses. You can do it part-time. I tell my children, I say, look, I don't care what you do in life. You can go be a teacher. You can go out and be a psychiatric, in psychology or whatever you want to do. You can work for the city if you want to. Go do whatever the hell you want to do. But there's one thing that you need to learn how to do, and that's how to buy land and build houses. Because if you do that, you could do it very part-time. I could tell people, you can go work 10 to 14 hours a week, do one house a year, and make over $100,000 doing it, And so you focus on what pays the bills and what gets food on your table and keeps a roof over your head, and then focus on building generational wealth. You could take that extra $100,000 a year that you're making buying land and building a house and deploy it into something. Imagine over a 20-year career, what that's going to do for you. That's a couple $1 million. You put that into $2 million that you save doing that. You can put that into an $8 million property. That $8 million property will grow to a $15 million property. So in spite of whatever else you're doing in your career, focus on what you have to do to get by, in spite of hating, in spite of what you're doing, because you're going to have to do it anyways if you don't focus on something, and then moonlight on something that's going to set you up financially for the rest of your life. And I'm talking to the mass majority, because 97% of our population works for 3% of our population. Okay, so 97% of you guys that are listening to this are working for somebody. So I know that a lot of people say, I'm self-employed, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Great. But I know the real numbers that 97% of you listening to this, in spite of your egos, in spite of the bullshit that you sell other people, I know that $100,000 a year can change your life. Focus on you and your family, what you need to do. Stop trying to figure out what you love and start focusing on what makes you money. Because what makes you money is going to set you up forever.
Yeah, that's very powerful, Jerome. And concur, right? Massive action is just so important.
Yeah, it is.
So Jerome, last question here for you. How can our listeners get to know more about you and connect with you?
So I'm real easy to find. My name's in the podcast. If you just Google it and you go to any social media platform from LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, they can click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tons of free content on there, lots of free content on there. And we're on all media platforms. Very easy to find. And all you got to do is reach out to us, reach out to our team. You guys want to find out a little bit more about what we're doing. You guys want to be a part of what we're doing. Just reach out to us. Me or somebody from my team will get back out to you guys. We're real good about staying up on our social media platforms, and the people DMing us and sending out messages. We will get back to you, and we'll embrace what you have going, and we have a good team of people that are working with us. And that's our goal, is to bring as many people on this ride as we can, but we're doing it. We're partnering with great people right now. So for those of you guys who are just getting started or have an excellent career and experience in something that we may need, exactly like what I did with Ty and these guys, they didn't have the real estate experience, and I just offered my genuine knowledge and information to them. And in return, I got business partnerships with great people that are better at things that I don't have. So go out, have an outreach to us, and we welcome you.
Perfect. Jerome, wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for hopping on the show, my friend. And I hope we get to chat soon. Thanks again.
Christian, thank you for having me, and just really appreciate you putting me out to all your listeners.
Of course. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate and Small Business for Management Consultants Show, brought to you by Quetzal Capital Group. Quetzal Capital Group works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate while also looking to add value in the communities where they operate. Quetzal Capital Group, client-centered, data-driven, result-oriented. Connect with us online at quetzalcapitalgroup.com to learn more.